Hey everybody, welcome to DeLady in Wonderland. Although today it's probably better to say Silverette in Wonderland since I'm taking over the park for a bit. And for those of you who are unfamiliar with it, DeLady in Wonderland is a video series by DeLady designer where she builds Wonderland, which is a very fairy tale fantasy style park, as you can tell, that very heavily focuses on scenery. Now, it's an amazing looking park, and like I said, she's done some amazing scenery out here, also in collaboration with SP Ridley, who has done some amazing work on it as well. And it already has two different themed areas here, the main area and a spooky area, and some different flat rides and a dark ride. But what it doesn't have yet is a roller coaster. And truth be told, roller coasters are more of an interest of mine than of the DeLady designer, so we figured that this would be a good crossover to get me into the series and just build a roller coaster here real quick and then get out of it. And she'll have to dress it up and add some scenery to it. So if you want to see how this roller coaster is going to end up and what the rest of the park looks like, definitely go check out the playlist. I'll leave it down in the description, and I'll also leave a link to her channel as well if you still haven't found that somehow. And yeah, I think it's best to get into the time-lapse, and I'll explain a little bit more along the way. So on an island in the spooky area of the park, which already features a haunted house and a train station and some other stuff, a general sort of haunted woods area, there's this island, and she wanted to have a roller coaster on it, but she figured that I would be a little bit better at building it than she would be. And to be honest, I was actually kind of happy when she asked, because I was really just aching to build a roller coaster, and I wasn't so much looking forward to doing scenery that day, so I just shoved my own projects aside and built this roller coaster. So yeah, that's basically what happened, and what I decided to go for after a bit of trying to work with the Maurusona X car is actually a Gerstlauer Eurofighter. The reason being is that you can probably tell that this is a very small strip of land on this island. There's not a lot of space. And it's a launched coaster that's also very compact, and that's something that I really felt would fit on the island quite well. Also, something that I had to keep in mind is that this right side of the island is going to have a castle on it. So there's going to be a bit of a weenie, and I wanted to leave some space for some architectural parts, and also try and get some interesting play between the coaster and the scenery to get that interaction going. So I wanted something that would lie low most of the time, while also being able to be a very compact coaster, while at the same time also being a very thrilling ride, and a Eurofighter I felt would really be the best thing to fit in here. So we have a launched Eurofighter, which has that launch aside the water, which is quite nice because it means that you can see the launch from all of the paths around the island, which is also some interesting interaction. If you have something like a launch, you definitely want to show it as much as you can. And from that we go into a top hat, which I originally thought would go into a curve straight away, but that probably resulted in some pretty bad laterals, and also it was a bit too quickly, and I really wanted to have a sort of long winding curve that would actually go over the water. So I decided to just finish the top hat normally and then get into the curve. And at this point, it's actually inspired by the very standard Eurofighter layouts, the stuff like Cannonball at Kenobi, which is just the layout where you normally have the lift hill and the beyond vertical drop into the loop, and it kind of just finishes off with a barrel roll, some helices and some curves, and that's basically what this layout is going to do as well, except instead of the lift hill, which I thought would look kind of ugly and take attention away from the castle, which is going to stand on the island, I would go for a launch, which hopefully should also make for a little bit more of an exciting ride, because it means that we can actually pull some mad airtime on top of that top hat, which it actually does. It's quite a fast launch, I think 84 kilometers an hour, kind of like, God, I can't pronounce it, but kind of like Flug von Novgorod in Hansa Park, which I took the idea from that. A launching Eurofighter like this might actually work quite well. And from that we go into the sort of standard loop that we have on Eurofighters, which is a little bit circular. I tried to get this shape in as well as I could. In the end I still think it's a little bit slightly too fat, more fat than I was going for. But in the end I'm quite happy with how the loop works. It was just kind of a hassle to get it done since I really had to build a custom loop to go for that slightly more round-ish shaping. I'm not entirely sure why Eurofighters have this sort of rounded loop. I've only been on one, but it's something that it rides fine. I actually think that the loop is quite good, but normally loops are much more teardrop shaped than that to go for more even forces. That said, Eurofighters do often have quite a bit of hang time in their inversions. That probably goes for Gerstlauer coasters in general. So I also wanted to make up for some of the hang time here, so we have a very slow moving barrel roll, which I'm working on over here. It's actually the only part of the coaster that I decided to make in 4-meter long pieces. Only problem with that is that I can't really make it very smooth, since none of the rest of the coaster is based on 4-meter long pieces, and I can't really use the smoothing method that well because the transitions from the regular length pieces into 4-meter long pieces is quite hard. But I guess the pro of doing the barrel roll this way is that it is actually hard lined, so it's going to be a bit rough and very jerky around the transitions. But hey, at least it's hard lined, and in this case I kind of went for track shaping over smoothness. So that's something that I went for anyway. And then with another turn, which is going through the loop, which was something that I didn't entirely plan, but I'm not really complaining because it actually looks pretty cool. We're getting into another area of the island. Now I tried to make this as compact as possible, so I'm really trying to use as much space of the island as I can to get as much coaster track in as I can. But I also wanted the most of the track to be elevated above the ground a little bit, because there also needs to be room for the queue. You might have noticed that my station is actually on the island. I've been thinking of doing a station outside the island in a Big Thunder Mountain kind of way. But the problem with that was usually that Big Thunder Mountain works because it has lift hills, and it just has a lift hill to bring you up to the island again. But in this case I wanted to go for a launched coaster, and a coaster that launches out of the river and onto the island was something that seemed like a fun idea, but this seems like it makes more sense and is a little bit more realistic and easy to work with. So I'm going for the slightly more safe option, I suppose, here by having the station on the island. It just means that I have to fit in the queue for the station as well. So as per most Eurofighters, I'm ending this off with a small helix over here, which means that we're pulling some nice vertical G's throughout this ride. And also helixes are just quite easy to make. We also have some snappy transitions on top of the hills. As you might have noticed, it really goes from some very heavy banking into another part of very heavy banking. So in terms of the shaping, I'm actually pretty happy with this coaster. It's definitely not the smoothest that I've made, but to be honest, and this is just personal preference, but I kind of prefer track shaping over smoothness, especially when it comes down to realism, since a perfectly smooth track is something that you cannot get to anyway. There's really no way to get to that without the continuous roll and with the strange way that splines work in Planet Coasters, so I'd rather sacrifice a bit more of the smoothing to get to the shaping that I want to, than actually getting a perfectly smooth track that's slightly differently shaped than what I would go for. So yeah, with that final helix, the layout is done. We have a very, very steep final brake run, since there was just a lot of ground to be made up for. But in the end, I'm quite happy with that, and it also gives us more room to work for the queue. And I also wanted to add in the queue. I only had to make the coaster for DeLady, since that was basically what I'm here for. But since I left such a terrible puzzle on the island with all of these supports and the very tight space that the coaster is going through, I figured I could also just make the queue and not have to make her worry about that. Although I won't be doing any of the scenery. And oh, just a quick thing that I also kind of wanted to talk about. There's no official anything that I've found on the internet about this, but when it comes to Eurofighter launches, or when it comes to Gerstlauer launches in general, they always have this tiny little dip before they go into the station. Now I'm pretty sure that this is because they're LIM launches, if I remember correctly. In any case, they're magnetic launches, so they work by switching the poles of magnets, or in any case, switching between magnets. I'm not an engineer, I don't know the exact details between it, but it works by having the coaster be attracted to the magnet in front of it and repelled by the magnet behind it, and doing that very quickly to make sure that the coaster is launched. So what I think is that it needs some speed to get going, because you cannot launch a magnetic launch from a standstill position, at least not as easily and not as quickly. But I'm not 100% sure on this, and I haven't been able to find any sources on this. So if anybody knows for sure and knows where you can find any info about that, that's something that I'm really looking for. But this is not a request in any way, it's just something that I've been wondering, because I'm pretty sure it's because of the magnetic launch, but it's something which the internet seems to be devoid of information about. In any case, as a final thing, I just wanted to add some supports over the barrel roll. I actually forgot to record my cinematics after I'd added the supports, so the cinematics at the end are actually without these supports. But it's something that's in the coaster in the end, because the barrel roll is very under-supported. In any case, that's the coaster. That's currently nameless. So I would like to thank you guys for watching. Hope you enjoyed this quick video where I'm just working on a coaster layout. It's something that I really enjoy doing, and something that I maybe put too little in my videos. So hopefully this makes up for it a little bit. And I'll leave you guys with some cinematic shots of the coaster. Bye guys!